Well, we're clumsy with some of the, I guess, the new features with YouTube Live. I thought I rotated it the way I wanted it horizontally. That's not going to go. I'm right outside the Arkansas Razorbacks basketball performance center on Thursday evening. We just went through. We saw about a 45-minute window of practice. We got to see drill work. We did get to see live full contact, some 5-on-5 in there. I tweeted some highlights out, just a few cut ups. But I had one comment asking, where's the continued action? Well, even when they scrimmage, they don't. It's not continuous. The whistle blows. They regroup. There's sometimes some instruction, so it's kind of cut up a little bit. But I was impressed with a lot of things I saw today. Arkansas really started when we got in, when the media got in. It was really mostly drill work to begin with. You saw some closeout drills, some hustle drills where you go, fight for the loose ball in the corner before it goes out of bounds and save it in. Different drills. When you're talking shooting, ones I've seen before. It seems like every year the full court that's timed where they're not only finishing at the rim, but balls are being shot from the perimeter. So a finish at the basket, two shooters on each wing shooting from three. I really like what I saw shooting the basketball today when I start talking Joseph Pinion, the sophomore from Morrilton, and as well as the transfer from Cincinnati, Jeremiah Davenport, not only in shooting drills and during those, but when it got to live 5-on-5, the red team defeated the white team in the portion we saw when they were keeping score and running clock, 15-12. Most of the buckets in that came for the red for Jeremiah Davenport. He sprayed some from three, really looked good on his catch and shoot release. And Joseph Pinion looked to be the leading scorer as well for the white team. Knocking the threes. He had a dunk running baseline in that dunker spot. Got a nice backdoor pass, went up and dunked it. Had another play where he drove baseline, defenders cut off his drive, and he just turned the other direction and had a little one-handed, 8-footer to finish. So Joseph Pinion, Jeremiah Davenport, we're talking offense. Saw a lot of good things. A player that Keon Minifield Jr., who's going to redshirt this year, he and L. Ellis were matching up. The transfer from Louisville were matching up as primary ball handlers for the red and white. And I saw the quickness that I saw from Minifield was very impressive. Liked his instincts as a lead guard and handling the ball and dealing with different kinds of defensive pressure, initiating offense. He wasn't looking to score, although he was very effective creating space and getting to the paint. I thought L. Ellis did not look to shoot. I really thought he looked to distribute the basketball and run offense. Devo Davis slashing the basket, had some really nice finishes, some tough plays against physicality. Jalen Graham showing his ability to, once he catches the ball, to dribble in a little closer. He gets inside that free throw line extended, and then he starts to go left or right, spin, use his pivot foot, and really try to attack the basket. So those were some things offensively that I took note of. Trayman Mark, I thought he did a good job initiating some offense off the bounce. Tremont Mark. Khalif Battle, a little quiet today shooting the ball in the 5-on-5. Of course, Trevon Brazile, and we reported this before practice. He went through, all the drill work up until it live full contact. He set that out. I asked Eric Melsman after practice that, and he said 2.5 weeks is the target date, but he reminds you, and this man's been out now. He hasn't been full go since early December when he got injured back in 2022. And Musselman said, it could be a moving target. So target date, 2.5 weeks to go through full live scrimmaging, but that could be a moving target as well. We'll see how it goes. By that time, you're into mid-October, and you're getting ready for that first exhibition game, which, by the way, I reported yesterday, Arkansas's first exhibition game against Division II, University of Texas and Tyler. That's on October 20th. That's a Friday. The football Hogs play a day later at home, return home after the long road trip to host Mississippi State. Arkansas will have an important visitor in, 5-star national top 5 Trey Johnson, 6'6" guard out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, who's at Link Academy, teammates with Jalen Shelley, also class of 2024, recently committed to Arkansas. But anyway, you're thinking maybe Trevon Brazile's ready to play in that game or getting close to it if he's going to be back in 2.5 weeks for full contact live scrimmaging. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they hold him a little bit. Musselman didn't go into that. But I thought it was very interesting. Musselman talked repeatedly during practice drilling his team down. He had stopped play, talking about how they want to push the ball, how they want to run, expectations to do that this year. I thought last year Arkansas's team would have been better in transition than it was. I think part of the problem is when you do not have shooters, it affects everything, including transition. I think it's going to be a little different this year, but he talked about the urgency for running during practice, imploring his team, and then after, when we did the post-practice interview, he was talking about how they want to run this year. I thought that was very interesting. He continues to be pleased with the fact that this team is a veteran team. They've been able to implement a lot more at this stage than they have in his previous 4 seasons. I think he sees this as a very good team, and when he talks in those terms, you have to respect that take. You have to also trust it, and I do. I've been saying for a while, on paper, this looks like a team with potential. You got to stay healthy. Other things have to fall into place to start talking Final Four. It's a long way from there, but on paper, and then after seeing what I saw today, I was very impressed with most of it. As we saw, probably more live 5-on-5, Musselman said, even than they've been doing lately. He said had media not been here, they'd have done less of that and more drill work. But I found some of the things very interesting, especially Pinion, who looked stronger, trusting that knee. I talked to him about that after practice when I interviewed him. And, he's a guy that when I asked him about the 3-point shooting, he and Davenport kind of going back and forth in that live 5-on-5 scrimmaging, he was candid. He said, he goes, it felt good. And that's something that's been missing around here for a couple of years. And he's right. He was on that team last year when he got his chances. This guy was Arkansas's best 3-point shooter by percentage, small sample size. So he was a part of a team that really struggled from distance last year. And of course, the year before that was similar case. This team really reminds me of Eric Musselman's first Elite Eight team. You go back 3 seasons, the Moses Moody, Devo Davis, Jalen Williams were freshmen, Jalen Tate, Justin Smith transferred in, J.D. Note, 6th man of the year after redshirting the previous year. I think this team that team maybe had Musselman's most diverse, was its most diverse when you look at positionally and different skill sets and what guys could do. And I think this one's more comparable. I don't think it's as low-dimensional or as one-dimensional as last year's team ended up being because of injuries and because just an overall lack of shooters and some similar issues at times, including lack of rim protection and size the previous year, that team that made the second Elite Eight run. So I think this team on paper kind of reminds me a little bit of the team 3 years ago. Not exactly the same, but potential-wise. And we know that team rattled off 12 straight wins against SEC teams before going into postseason, and then went on to make that run to the Elite Eight, a strong run where it lost to Baylor. Again, I go back to the drill work today. I look at the length on a guy like Chandler Lawson, 6'8", with a 7-foot plus wingspan. I'm so impressed because Brazile and Mekhi Mitchell going through the drill work, both of those guys are big, long. They've been in the system for a while. But you look at Arkansas from a size standpoint, Bay Fall, when they got into live 5-on-5, I just tweeted this highlight out. There was a drive into the paint, and Fall challenged that, altered the shot. It was nowhere close to going in. He tracked down the defensive rebound, immediately got off the ball. Arkansas ran in transition. You saw Chandler Lawson throw ahead to Joseph Pinion, who was out a little bit. A defender got back, and Pinion lobbed the pass up for Chandler to dunk the ball. I talked about that link, how impressive it was in that transition play. But stuff like that, you saw, to me, Bay Fall, one of a few things that I noticed is his length bothers people. And he can move from one spot to another pretty quickly. He's got quick feet. He's got mobility. A lot of times with younger players, when they get out of position or they're not there, sometimes it's mental and they're still learning and they're reading a situation, but just athletically, physically, instinctually, some of the stuff he brings to the table are a little different than some of the other guys. Of course, Brazile brings some of that, but we didn't see him in the 5-on-5 live. As we go through this, Arkansas is a quick turnaround. We're less than a week away when we start talking about this first or this next, I guess you'd call it dress rehearsal, first and next, Wednesday, October 4th, Arkansas at Barnhill Arena here on campus. It's the red-white game. We know Musselman's been having it played at Barnhill every year since getting here, usually mid-October, so it's a little earlier, October 4th. It's going to be very interesting. It's a midweek game this time, usually on the weekend. It's at 6:30 start. I'm looking forward to that, so we're 6 days away from that. We don't know yet how that's going to be divided up as far as how he's going to split the roster to play that game. But what we do know is there's not going to be a live stream again this year. No TV, obviously, no live stream. And Arkansas did, by the way, earlier today when I was driving up here, I had to pull over to get everything input in my story because the schedule has been updated once again. We knew the opponents. We know just about all 31. There's a couple of opponents that Arkansas will have in the battle for Atlanta. So that's undetermined because it's a tournament format. But we know the pool of teams that'll be drawn for that. We knew most of the game date. We knew all the game dates. We didn't know game times and TV designations for most. Now we know the TV designations. Another CBS game this year, also in March like it was last year. This time, instead of at Bud Walton, it'll be at Rupp Arena in Kentucky. Last year, Arkansas played on CBS at home against Kentucky. So this year, they play home and away again. The home game for Arkansas in January, that'll be on ESPN. But Arkansas's, got a lot of ESPN, family and network games, SEC network, obviously. The first four non-conference games are going to be on the SEC network plus, so that's the streaming part of that network. Sometimes tough for folks to get that to work. But Arkansas, I think it's their toughest schedule, not only non-conference, but I look at the conference and the way that lays out. So a couple of really tough three-game stretches in league play for Arkansas this year. And of course, that Duke game at home for the first ACC SEC challenge in late November after the Hogs get back from Battle for Atlantis, where it's Stanford to open up, obviously Memphis or Michigan in that second game, and then you're drawing in the third game, whether you're in the consolation bracket or the championship bracket, North Carolina, Villanova, Texas Tech, or Northern Iowa. And then there's some tough mid-majors. Furman's coming into to Bud Walton Arena. That's always a tough one. You got Oklahoma again in that rubber match at the BOK Center in Tulsa. So these are kind of regurgitating some of the same talking points. It was just very interesting today to actually see the TV designations. And most all of the game times, some of those are still to be determined based on various things, maybe a handful of games. So most of the game times are known now. But all of it's very interesting. The other part of this is you got to see Arkansas has been able to expand its on-court coaching staff. We've been reporting on that in the last few days. You saw promotions for guys like for coaches like Ronnie Brewer Jr., Todd Lee, Michael Musselman. And, now those guys, in addition to Anthony Ruda and Keith Smart, are part of the on-court coaching, I guess you'd call it a quintet, in addition to Eric Musselman. We saw most of those guys in there today. And so that was also interesting because you have more assistant coaches now that can take part in that. Layden Blocker did not go today. Musselman said he was having a wisdom tooth extracted, so we didn't see him. I thought the energy on defense was really good. Guys didn't necessarily have great driving easy driving angles when they tried to get to the basket. Was something I was a little bit concerned about when I watched some of the early clips that came out from June and July when they had that little break and they released some of the 5-on-5 stuff. Looked like guys were getting to the basket easy. Wasn't always easy. Today there was some contact in there. Defenders I thought did a good job of trying to wall off drives. Musselman talked in the post practice about Arkansas, what they've seen so far, maybe still struggling with some turnovers. Some other areas they want to get better in. That's always going to be the case at this level of basketball or any. I think you can tell he's supremely confident, though, in what these guys have learned, what they've been able to implement, and how far along he thinks this team is. I think this is, Musselman is pretty candid, but I do think that a lot of times it's what he doesn't say or how he frames things. And I think he's not held back. Every media opportunity, he's really talked about how he feels like this group is further along. I think this group also, he talked about how hard it works. And I think, there's probably, when I look at it and what I saw today, great communication. And that tells me there's respect amongst in the roster, and there's leadership there already. And I think guys are getting along. I got to interview Devo Davis after practice. We'll be tweeting out some of these interviews or parts of them here in a little bit. But I really liked what Devo had to say. Coming into year 4, this guy's had a big presence at Arkansas, not only in regular season work, postseason work. He's been he's going to go down. He's got a chance to go down. And I think he already is one of the all-time program greats, especially when you count postseason. But I think he can even climb the rungs on that ladder even more this year, especially where I think this team potentially could be. Also interviewed Davenport, Pinion, had some good talk with Denaje Harris. He helped me learn to pronounce his first name correctly. I hope I just did. But Arkansas may not, visiting with these players, talked to Cliff Battle, Just talking to these guys, there's a confidence, not an arrogance, not a cockiness, but a confidence and the work they're putting in and the results they're starting to see from it. It's so early. They just started this week. Monday was the first day of full practices. It'd been limited 4 hours per week on court June, July, and then when they got back to school. And so, here at the end of September, they've ramped it up. It goes up exponentially. I think the on-court time they could do is up to 20 hours per week now. So it's a lot more. And I know they've been working hard. I was told to expect maybe to see a team with tired legs by the time we got in here on Thursday because they've been going hard Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I thought guys looked fresh. I thought guys looked, like they weren't impacted by fatigue and that they've made adjustments maybe already with ramping things up. And so it tells you it's a good sign when the legs the legs look good, and guys, you didn't see a letdown in intensity as things moved on. And we got in here, they'd already been practicing, so we caught the tail end of it, the back end of it. No telling how long they'd been in there before we got in. I thought they looked great. I thought they looked sharp. I tweeted that out earlier. I mentioned some of the individuals. I think it's real important to remember this is one practice and one portion of a practice. So there's not a lot to glean from it in terms of, well, one guy was hot, maybe another guy wasn't. Because you can rest assured all of these guys can play at this level, and these guys are also going to have their better days, their not so good days. I really couldn't characterize anybody as standing out as not playing well today. I thought, especially defensively, I really thought guys dug in, walled off drives, contested, and you saw Arkansas, you see Eric Musselman's stamp already on this team on that end of the floor because this is where Arkansas's bread and butter has been. Everything else, whether they can shoot threes or not, they've been really great at the free throw line most years. Last year, not as much. Turnovers are up and down. Sometimes a problem. Sometimes they get better. But what you always know, these teams are going to be strong defensively. Top 10, back-to-back Elite 8 seasons. Last year, a little slippage down to 16 or 17. All of this is according to Ken Palm's efficiency ratings for defense. But Arkansas has been consistently a top 20 defense, somewhere in that top 10 to 20 range. And I see one thing you want to see when you come to a practice like this, at least a little bit, is that you don't have a lot of letdown with this group relative to what you're used to seeing. Again, it's early. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to step wrong. Wasn't it like this last year, though? Well, the problem with last year is what happened. You had two guys get hurt. Nick Smith Jr. missed most of the season. Trevon Brazile missed even more games. I mean, you had I believe Nick was out 19 games, ended up playing 17, but he was in, he was out, he was in, he was out. And then Brazile after 8 games. And so those were two of your more, skilled offensive guys, especially they stretching the floor, having versatility in the offense. Most of what Arkansas had outside of those guys were drive, try to get to the basket. Teams packing it in. That's why Arkansas spacing wasn't great, because it throws things off when teams are daring you to shoot and defending that way. So you're right, it did start out like this last year. We had some of these same talking points. I think the difference is this team, and thank you for the comment and the question, at this time was healthy, and that changed. By early December, Arkansas was a different team. Once Brazile went out, and it was obvious at that point. With Nick trying to get back, had missed several games, tried to get back, didn't play very many, and was out again for an extended stretch well into SEC play. So I think that's the difference. If this team's not healthy and continues to have issues with guys not being able to be on the floor because of health, now we're having a different conversation. I don't think it was far-fetched at all looking at Arkansas's roster and the makeup of it, that was a team that on paper had a potential for a Final Four kind of run had it stayed healthy and been together the entire time. I don't think it's far-fetched, and I don't think it's far-fetched to say that now. I wouldn't have said that about the team 2 years ago. I didn't. And I think the year before that, it was just too early. It was Musselman's second year, and guys like Moses Moody, Devo Davis, Jalen Williams were true freshmen. A couple of those guys didn't really break into the rotation until later on once SEC play was 6 or 7 games in. So it was a little too early to know about Musselman's program at that point to suggest something like that. But I think this roster is worthy for one, I think this is a deep SEC. I think 8 teams could make it to the NCAA tournament this year. There's 14 teams, so more than half. I think there's a potential for that. I don't think at the very top, the top 2 or 3, it's necessarily as strong as it's been maybe in recent years at times. So I think there may be some parity there, even among the NCAA tournament projected teams, which means the bottom 6 teams might also surprise somebody. So I think it's quality. I don't know how strong the best teams are, but I do think Arkansas should be in the conversation in those top 2 or 3 teams when you start talking about who potentially could win an SEC title when you're looking at it on the front end going into it, because we know there's preseason projections. I think Arkansas should be in that conversation. When I say that, I also think, looking at it on paper again, all the experience, the different talents guys bring, meshing it together. Musman's really good at it. If things look clunky for a while, he gets it figured out typically in early January or somewhere thereabouts. Again, last year's a bit of an outlier because of the injuries. But I think this is a team we could say, why not talk about it as a potential Final Four? We'll know more about it and clean that up if we need to, if things don't work out. But I have a feeling this team may start better in SEC play as well, and later that could help to impact their national seeding and their seeding going to the NCAA tournament if they start better and maybe finish better in league play. Thanks for the updates. I appreciate, I've got some comments coming in here. I'm trying to catch these as I can. We're about 21 minutes in. We're not going to do a whole lot tonight. Maybe wrap it up here in a few minutes. Just as a reminder, Arkansas, on the recruiting front, we can talk about this. I want to get this in here. Arkansas's got visitors upcoming, planned visits coming up in October. But let's look back. Jalen Shelley, we talked about it, class of 2024, 6'8" combo forward, Link Academy. He's from Frisco, Texas. He made that commitment to the Razorbacks just a few weeks ago. Got Arkansas off to a great start. It's a top 50 player nationally. It's 6'8". He fills that 3-4 combo. That's the kind of player that Musman covets. He likes that versatility, that small ball versatility, so he goes and gets players like that. And then I think when we look at Isaiah Elohim, the 6'5" wing out of Sierra Canyon, East Coast guy, he's been out on the West Coast playing high school ball, been out at Sierra Canyon now for a couple of years. He's a guy that's going to make an announcement soon. He loved his Arkansas visit. He just had that. We reported on that. I got him on the record about a lot of stuff that he really likes about the Razorbacks and the program and Musman and practice and the style of play and the system and all of it. And then he narrowed his list down to 3. Teams he's visited already: Kansas, Villanova, Arkansas was his last visit. So those are his top 3. And then he told me he's probably a week or 2 away from making a decision. That was a few days ago. So, any day now maybe. And that's his plan. And so we'll see if Arkansas strikes again and has 2 guys on board. I've said for a long, long time, I think Arkansas is a 2 or 3 commitment class again. Last year it was 2. I think it'll be 2 or 3. There's a chance for that to be 4. Dominoes have to fall a certain way, and I think it would have to be a guy like a Trey Johnson, a top 5 guy, again, coming in October 20th. Is he someone, national top 5-star? I mean, you're going to make room for that. You're going to change your plans if you came into it thinking 2 or 3, and maybe you've got 3 on board. You'd definitely take him. But I think it's still probably in that 2 to 3 wheelhouse. I don't think that's necessarily changed. The other things I'll say about it is, Rakeese Passmore, also class of 2024, 6'5" wing, Combine Academy in North Carolina. He's a guy that's scheduled to come in October 6th. So that's just the end of next week. I think we may be done here. No, still going. Okay, looked like it stopped. So end of next week, he's supposed to come in for an official visit. Currently, that's planned. Let's keep an eye on that one. We'll just put it this way and frame it this way. There are currently, that's a scheduled official visit. We'll see how things play out. Obviously, Arkansas's had a lot of players in for unofficial visits and official visits. The 2 weekends that the football team hosted games early in the year, they had up to 10 guys in, 5 each weekend, and some of those were some of those names we've already mentioned. But also class of 2025 and 2026. All right, we're pushing 25 minutes here. I don't know if this is working or not. It shows that the clock's still running, but also there's a prompt on here saying something went wrong. So we'll try again later. Until next time.